blasts of cold water.
It's not hoarding if it's books.
More about that word later. There are...
Later. More about that later. Cheers!
We had to collect big data on human exposure.
We had to collect big data. Big data. I read lots of books. They have consistent opinions. Drool. The longevity book that blew Chris MacAskill's mind.
I have a book problem.
You have an ego problem, Chris. They're not mutually exclusive, but the books that you read are probably propaganda. In fact, they're definitely propaganda, and we'll get into it, I'm certain.
Yes, he does.
Chris, stop exploiting your wife.
I got fascinated in longevity books, and I've read more than a dozen of them over the last 30 years.
Quantity doesn't mean quality. Next.
I blame the great Jack LaLanne, who was able to do things at his age no one else could do, and I wanted to be like him.
Right. There's plenty of 90 and 100-year-olds, actually. Well, first of all, not plenty of them, to be fair. 100-year-olds at least. But for the sake of the argument, there's plenty of them that got to where they are also while smoking. So does that mean you should smoke? Silly, stupid argument. Done, Chris. This is... You're... You're... Okay?
I was his caddy on the golf course as a young teen, and occasionally he would talk to me about diet. My background is physics, so I was naturally drawn to...
Right. So, why did you not just stick to that? Why did you not just stick to that? Smug, arrogant moron.
So I was naturally drawn to book authors who are credible scientists who run respected research studies on longevity. So...
What? Oh, but what? Because you were into physics, so you wanted to have proper science and controlled settings and all that stuff? Was that what your implication was? Because if that's the case, then why are you listening to the people that you are promoting right now in this video, who are promoting science that literally by definition is not science, it is theology, with hardly any control whatsoever? Define well-controlled by your standards. What do you characterize as well-controlled? Are you out of your mind? I think the reason you're not fat, Chris, is because of the fact that all of it is accumulating in your brain. Fat brain.
6 of my favorite book authors fall into that category. 3 of them have a heavy emphasis on diet, while the other 3 spend more time on factors like happiness, optimism, friends, and a sense of purpose.
Yes, all within the framework of longitudinal epidemiological data, which is extremely noisy. Extremely noisy. It's adjusted for, it's not controlled hardly at all. It's based on respondent data where people lie, people forget, all of the above in that respect. Okay, with no extrapolative power beyond the people that were studied in that particular observation. The reporting of relative outcome statistics as opposed to absolute outcome statistics, which, if they were both reported, would show that there's hardly any differences whatsoever between the two populations studied in prospective cohort studies. This is just ridiculous, Chris. Not to mention all of the studies that aren't even published in scientific journals because they don't support the hypotheses of the authors. And also arbitrary selection criteria that is employed whenever it comes to constructing meta-analyses anyway. Where you just get to select a bunch of studies that just so happen to serendipitously support your hypothesis, because you've excluded a bunch of others based on arbitrary criteria. Men only, English only. This is stupid. This is dumb. This is, might I say,
Diets they recommend go by different names: Mediterranean, Blue Zones, Pescatarian, and Vegetarian. But
Right, as if blue zones are all the same. They eat the same way, they live the same way. Yeah. As trite as this is, it's trite for a reason. How about we talk about Hong Kong? Also, the Mediterranean diet, that's not a thing. I mean, it is a thing as a concept. It's a concept, absolutely. It's a concept that is built by other researchers based on a bunch of sparsed out studies done in the Mediterranean population that basically construct a Mediterranean diet based on certain foods that they studied in isolation. If you look at the Mediterranean diet as constructed, trademark, and you provide that to the Mediterranean population, how many of those people would recognize that as the diet they eat? Right, rhetorical question.
conclusions about diet have a lot in common. I'll let
Who cares?
Roseanne Kenny explain.
Oh my god. Again, just self-aggrandizing. It's not hoarding if it's books. It's not hoarding if it's books. It's not learning if it's propaganda, Chris. Imbecile. Smug mug.
Mediterranean's diet shares many features with the well-known Mediterranean diet. They are 95% plants, high in fish, very low in red meat, moderately low in dairy and eggs.
Right, okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at this real quick. Okay, ready? The Irish Longitudinal Study on Aging. Wow, I think we're done, aren't we? Longitudinal Study on Aging. Professor Roseanne Kenny. Roseanne Kenny is the founding principal investigator of Ireland's largest adult population study on the experience of aging in Ireland. So what was the population? What was the sample size? How long did the study go on for? What was the control exerted? What else were these people eating? What else were these people doing? What else were these people not eating and not doing? What were the absolute differences between the populations that were actually observed and included in this observation? What was the absolute strength of the association? Because we need to start talking in absolute terms and not relative terms. Was the study's data adjusted for via multivariate regression, which means fabrication of data, because it means stacking a bunch of univariate regressions on top of each other and pretending like that further controls for a study because you weren't able to exert the control in the study that you would have liked to in order to get the signal that you were actually wanting to acquire? How many studies were done like this that weren't published in journals because of the fact that they didn't support the hypothesis of the authors? How many was this study part of a constructed meta-analysis that employed arbitrary selection criteria in the inclusion of the studies that were included in the study in the overall meta-analysis? We're done. We're done. Imbecile.
Very low in sugars and devoid of processed food.
Hold on a minute. Very low in sugars. How could that be the case? They're eating 95% plants, according to you. Plants are literally full of sugar. Fruit, for example. Starches, for example. Certain vegetables, like potatoes, for example. The only ones that don't have lots of sugar, at least digestible sugar, are low carbohydrate vegetables like broccoli. So man-made, invented vegetables, which we used to just call, plants until we started pretending like they were something that we ought to be eating and they were appropriate to eat, in which case we actually developed the word vegetable, which is a culinary term strictly. There's plants, actually. Or if you go far enough, herbs, especially considering how small they used to be before human hybridization. But yeah, those still have sugar in them. They're just indigestible sugars, fiber, which causes a problem for other reasons. Like, for example, the fact that, it obstructs your enteric system because it's literally indigestible. Oh, well, you need fiber to actually defecate. Oh, really? Well, tell that to literally any other animal that doesn't eat fiber that gets away with it just fine because peristalsis exists. Are you kidding me? No dietary requirement for fiber, no benefits that are able to be conferred upon fiber that have that's based on any science of any utility whatsoever. And enteric nervous system disrupting and destructive over time, perniciously, insidiously. Okay, we're done.
Actually, I have a gripe about her. She wrote something I did not want to hear. She disrupted one of life's great pleasures for me, a warm shower. Blasts of cold water.
Chris thinks that he is so f***ing funny. Chris thinks that he is so intelligent. And really thinks he's better than literally everyone else. This man thinks he is better than everyone else. He's been like this for his entire career. I would suspect his entire life. I think his entire life he's been what you may call a smug mug. With a fat brain. Serious issue. Chris, get a grip. I mean, you're this old and you're still acting this way. You're not going to get a grip. But I guess I suppose I should be thankful for that. Because then you provide me with content to eviscerate entirely. So, anyway. I suppose that's one way of looking at it.
Hormesis. More about that word later. There are...
Later. More about that later. Great. Cool. So he's probably going to misrepresent what hormesis is, too. Later. Later he will. Right, and now he has the Blue Zone, Secrets for Living Longer by Dan Bettner? Healthy at 100 by John Robbins. Yeah, just a bunch of nonsense based on prospective cohorts, based on longitudinal epidemiological data and reductionism.
Anecdotal books I like that have aged really well. Dr. Denmark was a pediatrician until she was 103 and lived to 104.
Oh, wow. Oh, oh man, Anyway, I thought that we weren't fans of anecdotes, Chris. Oh, so anecdotes can be used as supplementary to real science, right? So theology, right? Okay.
If you'll eat right, drink right, and love to do what you're doing, there's no reason to die.
Oh, no reason to die. Well, guess what? You're still going to die. And also, eat well and drink well doesn't mean anything. Cheers!
All right, who's the next angel?
Unfortunately, if profit is a motive for publishing a book, especially in America, things tend to go south.
Tell us all about how you got your profit, Chris.
To amass all the bestsellers Mark Hyman has published across so many topics.
Mark Hyman, I have nothing against him personally, however, I'm not really a fan of what he has to say. The only things that I'm a fan of what he has to say about are things that are so broad that you can't disagree with them, which is it's not utilitarian at all. It's things where he gets so broad where he's like, make sure to get your essential amino acids in. This many people don't get their adequate protein intake every day. You should. Here's how you can. Stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, yeah, you'd be hard pressed to disagree with that. But I'm not the biggest fan of Mark Hyman.
My judgment that he's traveled the well-worn path of telling people what they want to hear. David Sinclair is very high profile and for a long time
Wait, whoa, hold on. What did you say about Mark Hyman?
published across so many topics. It's my judgment that he's traveled the well-worn path of telling people what they want to hear.
So that was a dig on Mark Hyman. It was a dig on Mark Hyman. You know what? That actually might be true. I haven't paid enough attention to Mark Hyman to know that.
Sinclair is very high profile, and for a long time I took myself to task for not being able to make sense of some of the things he claims.
Well, you should be taking yourself to task, and if you're not, I will. I'll be doing so right now. I'm doing so right now for not understanding literally anything that you talk about at all. This example was just most apparent to you that you don't know what the you're talking about. It made it the most apparent to you that you don't know what the you're talking about. David Sinclair is another one of these, I'd like to think, well-intentioned individuals of high status that doesn't understand implications of science, the proper performance and conduction of science, or someone that understands extrapolative power, the basics of science, reductionism, and why and how to avoid it. Okay? Why we age and why we don't have to. That was good marketing right there. Great. Making people, bringing to light and exposing and really exploiting other people's insecurity, age, and then providing them a solution as to how they can avoid aging entirely. That's great. Doesn't mean that it's actually appropriate information, though, or correct or veracious or integral.
But I notice he's very controversial in scientific circles for many of the same questions I have, so whatever, I don't get it. And then there are the pop American books that I don't think fare well.
Yeah, you know what? You should say that about literally every thing that you talk about. Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't get it. You'd be a lot more honest then. You'd actually be a lot more bearable.
And fact-checked. Peter Attia has very important things to say about the American healthcare system and exercise, but
he's not vegan. But he still promotes too much animal protein, which means he's anti-science. He's anti-science. Because it doesn't fit my ideology.
I think when you mostly dismiss a branch of science which has revolutionized so many other...
Oh, hold on a second. When you dismiss an entire branch of science, what is it? What do you think it is? I make no secret of my disdain for nutritional epidemiology studies. Between the reliance on weak methods, weak measurements, weak analyses, and weak reporting, I would hardly know where to begin in simply describing the problems with these study types, let alone identifying their possible solutions. See, Peter is one of the most rational people in the opposition to carnivore, I think. So, is he entirely rational? No, and I actually mean that with all due respect. I don't think Peter's actually done anything to warrant serious criticism. But also I haven't been exposed to enough of him, I don't think. So anyway. But there's an example of what I'm talking about. Peter Attia understands. So what the Chris? He's just tenaciously holding on to this idea that, again, if epidemiology is one of the primary fields of science, one of the borderline exclusive fields of science that actually supports your positions on diet, lifestyle, etc., then of course you will tenaciously hold on to that philosophy, to that field of science, so-called science, by desperately constructing arguments that are built on faulty foundations in order to keep it afloat. Are you going to provide any counter arguments as to why Peter's wrong here? Or are you just going to say he's wrong because you said so? Fat brain. Get the out of here. And speaking of the lack of science that this is, like the whole nutrition science space being riddled with things that are not really science at all, but theology. If you have not bought your tickets to Meat Stock in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, I will link in the description below a place for you to buy those tickets with a discount if you use code contraindicated for obvious reasons. It's my book. Hey Chris, you like reading? You like reading? Hey, it's not hoarding if it's books. It's not hoarding if it's books. Anyway, you'd learn something there. Should do a video on that. Should do a video on that, Chris. Seriously. Anyway, that's only if you want to promote me, though. It's only if you want to give me any attention, though. Anyway, the reason I say that is because I'm doing a presentation. I'm doing a presentation at this event. I'm a speaker at this event. And you can see me in person if you buy a ticket. I'm doing a speech about this exact phenomenon here. This exact phenomenon. Which is extremely important.
As he does, it leaves you especially vulnerable to going off the rails with regard to diet.
Oh, really? Tell us all about going off the rails with respect to diet, because you reject nutritional epidemiology as a science that can actually provide strong signals with respect to what you're actually trying to derive in terms of your question and your hypothesis or hypotheses. Moron, Chris. Moron with an ego. Smug mug with a fat brain. Unbelievable.
Come out of both earth science and Silicon Valley tech, where people who understood big data the best came out to be the biggest winners.
Oh, yeah. Quantity over quality. Quantity over quality. Right. Anyway, holy shit.
Google crushed every other search engine, how Mark Zuckerberg built his empire, and how Amazon revolutionized online shopping. In earth science, we had to collect big data on human exposure.
We had to collect big data. Big data. I read lots of books. I read lots of books. Insert wife. Insert wife. Yes, he does. Oh. Because they're trying to be wholesome, and it works. It works. The high production quality as well. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. The beguiling, the manipulation, the lulling, the demagoguery, the propagandizing, the false dogma. Unbelievable, Chris. Hey, where'd you get all your books from? Barnes & Noble?
Chemicals to infer causality for specific human diseases.
Hold on! Causality, huh? Let's rewind and see what he actually just said here.
Revolutionized online shopping. In earth science, we had to collect big data on human exposure to chemicals to infer causality for...
No, false. You cannot infer causality with epidemiological data. Absolutely fundamentally false. You can opine it. That is it. We're done. Your epistemic standards are not based in objective reality. You need to read some David Hume, my friend. You want to talk about reading? Go read some David Hume, who actually understood this in the 1700s.
Specific human diseases. I think it's harder than nutritional studies because you have all the confounders like diet and exercise, but you...
Wow, no, not just like diet and exercise, but literally any other lifestyle behavior. All of them, Chris. And also respondent data based on food questionnaires administered every 2 to 4 years.
Have chemicals and you can't do randomized trials.
And you can do randomized trials. Clown. This is clown shit. Oh, oh, oh man, the patronizing, didactic, just haughty attitude. It's repulsive and odious. You moron. You absolute moron. You smug mug. Having fun. Anyway. Yeah, no, that's not how that works. What you have is associations and plausible mechanisms. That's what you deal with in science. That's what it is. But anyway, randomized trials, huh? Which also can't control for confounding variables in lifestyle behaviors. They're not metabolic ward studies that actually consider genotypic and phenotypic identical twins that are separated at birth into separate metabolic ward lock-in rooms. So you still have confounders there. I suppose if you're going to rank them, randomized controlled trials are obviously better than epidemiological studies, but it also depends on the context. So, you know, as a hard rule, generally speaking, yes, sure, but I mean, that's pretty low bar, isn't it?
Can't imagine Peter walking into a room of toxicologists and environmental chemists and saying the things he says about epidemiology and being taken seriously by anyone.
Okay, so also appeal to popularity, appeal to consensus, appeal to authority, right? Because that's what that was. You won't be taken seriously if you say that. Well, would you have been taken seriously? Were you taken seriously a few hundred years ago whenever you said that slavery wasn't appropriate morally? No, you weren't. Until you were, right? Until you were. You go to the founding fathers of the Constitution of the United States of America, and they would have taken you seriously if you said that, because they already knew that there were serious moral problems with slavery. But most people did not. Or they disagreed. So it's just... Anyway.
And I think that's why his ideas about diet have long been all over the place, and he doesn't want to talk about diet. While
right. So again, ego, and he's feigning this sense of humility. He's feigning humility by sounding like he's saying it in a charitable, complacent way. Not with a C, but with an S. Okay, in an altruistic sort of sense. When in reality, it's a sublimation of his deep disdain for Peter and his opinions into that feigned sense of humility in order to aggrandize himself as a noble person in the perception of ignorant followers, ignorant viewers. That's what he's doing. You see this all the time. You see this all the time, where you hate what someone has to say about something, but instead, since you want to look like the superior one in the dynamic, instead of you getting angry, because then it's sort of you sort of understand unconsciously that it looks like you're the one losing, right? The exchange. You instead make it seem like you're the morally superior one. You start sounding didactic, you start sounding patronizing, and you start saying, well, in my opinion, that's why I think you've been all over the place, you idiot. Like, you might as well just say that at the end. This is what he's doing. This is what he does all the time. He's a maniac behind the scenes. Guaranteed. That's what all these smug mugs are behind the scenes. These fat-brained idiots.
Longevity researchers have a clear, consistent, simple, and confident message that everyone can understand.
Right, based on the same type of science that isn't science. So what's the damn point? They have consistent opinions, drool. It's consistent, so it must be true. Idiot! Idiot! Unbelievable. What else we got here?
These two popular books don't seem to pass fact-checking either. I'm just not...
Oh, yeah, fact-checking by whom? Chris? And on what basis? According to whom? On the basis of what? Buy that shirt. It's about damn time you get your hands on that, or your torso on that. It's about time. Oh, and you have Stephen Gundry here as well. Stephen Gundry here. And Forever Strong by Gabrielle Lyon. Hey, fact check my book, Chris. We all know that if you actually made a video, it would just be, this is the worst book I've ever read in my entire life. This is the worst one. Magically. This is from a high school graduate. I think we can write this off. I sure hope you're a high school graduate, Chris. So sorry that I'm not a former earth scientist and physics nut. Like, what? That's yeah, sorry. If I had those criteria, then I'd be able to talk about health and all this stuff. Again, this gets into the paradoxical trap that people fall into. Well, I'm not saying that I'm the expert. I'm saying that I'm deferring to other experts. That's what they always say. That's the start of the losing cycle, the losing argumentative cycle. It's like, wait, okay, so you're appealing to authority, which is a fallacy. So you recognize that it's a fallacy. Why is it a fallacy? Well, just because people in authority can be wrong, are saying something doesn't mean that they can't be wrong. It's like, right, so why are you deferring to authority? Well, because even though they can be wrong, it's our best inference because I'm not the expert, so why shouldn't we defer to them? Okay, well, aren't there experts in the same consensus panel that disagree with them? Yeah, but that's why I appeal to overall consensus. That's the strongest signal, because even though there's people that disagree with them, I'd rather listen to the overwhelming majority of them. And it's like, okay, so can you guarantee that they're right on in this occasion? No, I can't. It's like, okay, so then it's just your opinion then, right? Yes, your opinion as someone that isn't an expert in the field by your own criteria. Yes. Trapped. Done. So, again, am I angry? Do I think it's always stupid to appeal to authority figures in a certain field when you don't know an answer to something and you don't know how to properly investigate that field? No, actually. This is where this is where I actually cover the nuance here. No, I don't, because a lot of times we don't have time to study every damn thing. We don't have time to study every single thing in the universe. People have jobs and lives, okay? So you have to defer to other people. You have to defer to other people, okay? The problem is saying that since an authority figure said something, it must be correct. Just say, this is my best inference given my circumstances. And then also, finally, the final point of nuance is to recognize that the most important thing to look at is not the most important thing to appeal to in these circumstances is not to authority, but a track record. How much of what has been said, prediction-wise, fact-wise, has actually been borne out over time? What's the rate of success? If it's extremely strong in your opinion and consistent, it doesn't mean that there's a causal relationship there. It could be association doesn't equal causation. I could have thrown out a bunch of predictions, 5 different predictions, and all of them have come true, even though I just threw random shit out, right? But that's the best inference nevertheless. What is the alternative becomes the question. That should be the best inference. Now, with all that said, what has been the success rate? What has been the track record of our health professionals? And the guidelines and all of this shit. All of it. What has it been? Has it been good or bad? Anyway, there's that. And then also, what if we could find a stronger signal as to what we ought to be eating and how we ought to be behaving? What's a good baseline manual and reference? Well, it very well could be, I don't know, evolution. One of the strongest theories in all of science. I don't know, we could take a look at that. Hard sciences. Chris. Defer to the experts on that. Not self-selected experts, by the way. Moron.
Of any scientist who can understand where Dr. Gundry gets his ideas. And all can understand.
Wait.
These two popular books don't seem to pass fact-checking either. I'm just not aware of any scientist who can understand where Dr. Gundry gets his ideas.
Okay, so just because you're... Okay, so appeal to ignorance fallacy. Just because you aren't aware of them, that means that they must not exist and it must be false what he's saying, right? Okay. Why didn't you observe these yourself? All the citations that he put forth. Listen, I'm not saying to listen to Dr. Gundry. I'm just saying, logically speaking, did he look at them? Why didn't he look at them?
And all that brings me to How Not to Age. This advanced copy landed on my desk.
Michael Greger. Okay. Take a look at Dr. Michael Greger and tell me if his diet is doing what's best for one's health. What's best for his health. If it's doing him any favors. If it's preventing him from aging. How Not to Age by Michael Greger, MD. So here's the other thing about Michael Greger. He is an MD because he graduated his propaganda induction. Propaganda camp. Okay. His time in propaganda camp. But from my understanding, he has never opened a private practice at all. Right. So he's just like you and I, isn't he? Unbelievable. New York Times best-selling author of How Not to Die and How Not to Diet. Right, okay. So again, with these stupid titles, How Not to Die. Oh, I'm gonna read this and I'm gonna be immortal. Stupid, idiot title. Idiotic title. Get out! Oops. Get out! Get out, Michael Greger. Get the f out of here. Get the f out of here, Chris.
4 months ago, and it broke my brain. I have
It broke my brain! I think your brain has been broken for years, Chris. It's been broken.
seen a longevity book like this, and I still can't believe it's possible.
I know, that's crazy. Hey, have you felt that way about my book? There's a lot here. There's a lot of stuff here, and there's lots of references as well. And by the way, interestingly enough, it's not to say that all the references are lacking in weight and all this stuff. I'm obviously not going to say that. But a lot of those references were with respect to supplementary claims, not primary claims. And therefore, I was a little more cursory with the implementation of those references, the inclusion of those references. So some of the things, if you scrutinize all the references, some of the references you might look at and go, this doesn't show shit. And I would say, yeah, I know that, which is it's what I said in the first chapter of my book. But I'm using things as supplementary for reasons that I've talked about before. I won't do so now. I think I just talked about this yesterday at the time of recording. So you will have probably already seen a video where I talk about that. Yeah, there's a video specifically dedicated to that. I'll link that in the top right corner of the screen so that you can actually hear the justification for that. But anyway.
Focused heavily on diet. It's over 600.
Right, okay, so here it's over 600. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what the the number has to do with anything. Diet, beverages. So the optimal anti-aging regimen, diet, beverages. What do centenarians eat? Who cares? The Mediterranean diet. Okay, so again, slap that trademark on there. Like that's something that is eaten in the Mediterranean. Okay, the Okinawan diet. Oh, Okinawa, right, right. Shall we ask Jesselyn Randall what the Okinawans eat as someone who's literally been there? The red, white, and blue zone. So it looks like I wasn't the only one that thought that was a good idea to title a chapter something along those lines, because chapter 5 is sunlight, blue light, red light, deuterium. Ah, right. Okay. So the Okinawan diet, the red, white, and blue zone diet, plant-based eating, right? So torture, right? Okay. Treating yourself like a Holocaust victim or something, effectively, and deluding yourself into thinking that you're well-fed. Lifestyle, exercise, weight control, sleep, stress management, and social ties. Right, okay. So this is coming from someone that does not understand science at all. Yeah, unfortunately, that is the truth of the situation. That is the reality of the situation. Okay?
Pages of small print, and that doesn't include the 13,000 references which you access.
Oh yeah, hey. You want to preserve your sex life? Hey, how about you read a section called "Preserving Your Sex Life" by Dr. Greger, Dr. Michael Greger. Oh, hey, you want to hear about preserving your bones on a vegan diet? Go read Michael Greger's book. Right. Preserving your teeth. Hey, you want to talk about, you want to learn about how to preserve your muscles? Go listen to Dr. Michael Greger. Right. That's great. That's great. Oh, wow.
I have other fat books of nutrition. Oof! But they were...
Oof! Oh! Hey, after this, I think I'll go watch Sesame Street, too. Because I think they talk to me the same way. What do you think? Ooh, this is heavy book. Oh! Phew! Whoa! Oh, boy! That was a doozy! You insulting wad. Get the out of here, Chris. Get the out of here. You intellectually dishonest. Okay. All right.
But they were written by hundreds of scientists in their specialty.
Oh! Hundreds! Oh, I don't know if I can take it! Hundreds! I'm compelled to believe! Quantity over quality. Hey, remember when you learned that in school? It's always a matter of how much you have, not the quality of what you have. Right. Remember learning that? I don't. Maybe he does. Maybe he learned it in propaganda camp. Maybe he learned it in his physics classes or something like that. It doesn't matter the quality of your studies. It matters the quantity of them. Let's perform studies to actually deduce why photons, despite having no mass, can have momentum. We won't be super controlled with our analyses. We'll just make sure we do a lot of them. What? Unbelievable. Anyway, yeah, no, I'm really compelled by the quantity. Oh, look at that. Oh, the number of scientists. The number of them. The number of pages, the number of references. I can't help it. I'm compelled. Bansho Tenin. Hey, if you understand that reference, good on you. Good on you. Universal Pole. Okay.
By the way, the editor of this volume, Maurice Schills, died at 100.
Oh, wow. Oh, me. That was exclusively to do with diet, by the way. That had nothing to do with any of the other things that we've built since the times of, I don't know, 100,000 years ago. Nothing to do with medical interventions and healthcare. Nothing to do with climate-controlled environments and safer environments overall. Nothing to do with any of that. Nothing to do with the technological revolution that allowed him to eat as many plants as he did on a regular, recurring basis. Nothing to do with any of that, though. So first of all, fallacy of the single cause, and also post hoc.
So how do you fact-check a book like How Not to Age? There are some credible whispers online that Dr. Greger wears rose-colored glasses when it comes to plant-exclusive diets. I'll give you an example.
Wow, you see how, ooh, it's witty. Ooh, oh, that's cute. Oh, they're so cute. He wore rose-tinted glasses. And don't forget, he talked to you like this. He talked to you like this because he thinks that you have the IQ of a 5-year-old. And maybe that makes you feel good. Maybe that makes you feel taken care of and safe in his environment. Maybe it does. But if you're worth your salt, you'd be insulted and offended at his stupid didactic behavior. Get control of your ego, old man. It's about time. We all know that behind the scenes you're a psycho. You're a psycho, Chris. I'd love to hear you rebut this. I'd love to see you try and rebut that. It is probably a good idea that before you start saying things in response to someone else when you don't know anything about what they actually have to work with, to be careful with how you frame things. For the same reason that you better be careful calling someone else a liar in person when they have receipts. Be careful. That's what I'm saying. Am I saying that I have receipts? Not specifically, not particularly. I'm leaving this purposely vague, intentionally vague. I could be making shit up. There's a lot of people that say that they have receipts and don't ever show them because they are making shit up nowadays. There's a lot of that going on. Those people are just like Chris MacAskill, by the way. They're patronizing, they take advantage of you, and they think you're stupid. They think you're stupid. Stop listening to them because they're insulting to your intelligence. Anyway.
Dr. Greger frequently cites Dean Ornish's heart reversal study.
Right. So Dean Ornish, the guy that promoted, I mean, he was basically butting heads with Dr. Atkins back in the day. Do I think he's a nefarious actor? I don't have enough evidence to support that claim. So since I don't have enough evidence to support that claim, and or I haven't been exposed to evidence that would support that claim, I'm going to not say that they're guilty, right? So again, stuff that we have forgotten in 2026. That's how you actually conduct investigation and research. That's how you actually investigate situations and phenomena. Not by guilty until proven innocent, or nowadays just guilty until never. You're just always guilty no matter what. Oh, hey, provide me an alibi. Provide me an alibi because we think you're guilty. Ooh, that person remained silent, so therefore they must be guilty. That's really suspicious. They're silent. That's an admission of guilt. Don't tell me about the Fifth Amendment or anything, but just why wouldn't they want to provide an alibi? Then provide an alibi and then say, yeah, you're getting real defensive there, bud. That's really suspicious. You wouldn't need to provide an alibi that quickly with that much alacrity if you weren't guilty. What? So, Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Man, you're really intelligent. I should keep listening to you. Right. Okay. Anyway.
You can reverse heart disease on at least a vegetarian diet. I agree it's a groundbreaking study, but only 35 people completed the 5-year study, and there
Right, so that's a problem, not to mention the fact that it still couldn't inform upon causality because you didn't isolate the diet and these people weren't genotypically or phenotypically identical. These people didn't live the same lives beforehand. They weren't exposed to the same confounding, spurious, lurking variables throughout the course of the study that weren't controlled for. Okay? We're done. 5-year follow-up, what type of study was this? Because that also tells us how the actual degree of control. Yeah, and also, once again, 35 people, not to mention, even if it were diet, was that due to the plants or was that due to the abstention of other things? What were these people eating and what were these people not eating? What was the frequency of their meals? What was the absolute mass intake of the, like, holy shit. You don't understand this at all. We all knew that, though. Any of us that actually had a remotely moderate IQ, not even high, moderate IQ, we understood this from the beginning.
other factors like aerobic exercise and group social.
All exercise is aerobic at all times. You don't understand muscle energetics either. There's no anaerobic threshold. There's an anaerobic gear of the 4-gear system that operates just at different rates, all together, all at once, in every intensity of exercise, including twitching my damn finger. That is also something that is supported by actual physiology data. So we're not even talking about human nutrition science now. We're talking about physiology. So journals of physiology, okay, but it's not talked about. Shulman and Rothman, the glycogen shunt, and shaking up glycolysis. Not in that order, actually. Shaking up glycolysis came first, then the glycogen shunt. That proved unequivocally that glycogen is effectively required. They didn't explicitly state this. This is the clear inference from it. Glycogen is required for every single muscle twitch of all intensities. All of them. If anaerobic exercise were truly anaerobic, why is it that oxygen consumption is maximized during that exercise? Oxygen being the only mitochondria, your aerobic system, being literally the organelle that is involved in using oxygen to create ATP. It's the only reason we breathe oxygen. So clearly, if oxygen consumption goes up, it's because of an increased rate of mitochondrial function. Not only an increased rate of mitochondrial function, but also just an increased demand for oxygen because of the ATP utilization. Passed on, by the way, transferred by creatine. Phosphocreatine, really. PCR. The alactic system, which I said that as if that's actually, I said that in a cynical way. No, that is the alactic system. But anyway, cool. So aerobic exercise, really what he means is lower intensity exercise, okay? Lower intensity exercise that isn't as glycolytic, so that gear isn't really the primary one that's being used. There's not as much of a demand on that.
Support, not just diet. I followed Dean Ornish's plan closely, but I had a stroke last year. The doctors discussed.
Well, since we're responsible individuals in the space, first of all, as much as I really dislike you, Chris, that is a shame. Second of all, to say that it was strictly due to a plant-based diet would be irresponsible. Heart disease in any form, cardiovascular disease, occurs over the course of decades. I don't think plant-based helped your case, though. That's my opinion. That's my opinion, Chris. Also, Chris, why do you have a damn mask on? You are in the United States, from my understanding. I could be wrong about that. And masks, from my understanding, I don't visit the hospital too frequently, are not required in hospitals anymore. I'm not entirely sure if that's true universally for all hospitals, and not only just for all hospitals, but all areas of hospitals. But I would suspect that they're not required in any hospital anymore because it is 2025. Well, it's now 2026, but you said last year, which may have actually been in reference to 2024, depending on when this video was uploaded. I think it was 2024. In which case, why the are you wearing a mask? You're talking about science-based evidence, and yet you're wearing a damn mask. On a common sense level, you might suspect, as we did in 2020, or, I mean, I would say most people did, at least initially, even if it was for like 2 weeks. Yeah, wearing a mask makes sense in order to prevent transmission or whatever, blah, 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 right? On a common sense level. And then the science that actually emerged suggested that it really wasn't, it was a quite trivial addition, along with social distancing and all these other things. It was nonsense. Okay. The most egregious things, the most egregious claims that were made were with respect to the whole natural immunity thing. Oh, that doesn't exist. Huh? Because those people were nefarious ding-dongs. Ding-dongs. So, anyway.
Genetic defect in my heart, plus I had suffered a childhood virus which scarred my heart, raising my risk profile for strokes sharply. There's not much...
Seriously? Seriously? Wow. I think, first of all, your content is not conducive to preventing strokes in other people, by the way, because I'm about to have one. But second of all, maybe it's because of how psychotic you are behind the scenes. That's why you had a damn stroke. Just a thought. Did it help? Do you think it helped?
That diet and lifestyle reduced my risk profile. The doctors and nurses all said...
Also, risk can't be informed upon because risk is a cause and effect statement. You need to inform upon that phenomenon. If you're going to inform upon it, you can only do so within the context of a hypothetical vacuum. You have not done that. They are associative factors with plausible mechanisms attached to them. That is the best that you have. It's not a risk. Okay? Saying 47% increased risk, first of all, is multiple fallacies wrapped into one. That's based on a population that you were not a part of, so therefore cannot be extrapolated to you with different genotypes, phenotypes, and different lifestyle behaviors. Okay? So not your risk. Second of all, 47% increased risk on an individual basis based on a population observation is called an ecological fallacy, also known as a division fallacy, which claims and asserts that what is true of the whole is true of parts. Just because you saw a 47% increased risk, you didn't see a risk at all, but an association, an incidence rate, an increased incidence in one group compared to another does not mean that each individual in the 47% group, the 47% increased risk group, had a 47% increased risk. That's called an ecological fallacy or a division fallacy. You can't just say because the group itself had a 47% increased risk that each individual that made up the group had a 47% increased risk. That's stupid. So it's an ecological fallacy, and it's a faulty generalization fallacy, and it's a post hoc fallacy because you're using the word risk, which is by definition, by consequence, implicitly a cause and effect claim. People that ate this, eating this increased your risk of this by blank percent. That is a cause and effect claim. Now, if you said people eating this had a 47% increased risk of this, that's implying a causal relationship because of the way it's phrased, but it's not actually making one. That is actually technically correct. That is not a post hoc. So now it's just two fallacies. It's faulty generalization, and it's a division fallacy. Actually, you know what? It's still, in a way, it still is post hoc because risk is always drawing. No. It's not post hoc. Technically speaking, it's not post hoc if it's phrased that way. Anyway, still fallacious in many respects.
was their star patient, but my rose-colored glasses became a little clearer that day.
Oh my god, I love Chris. He's so funny. He's so witty and funny. Yep. Yep. Oh, I love you, Chris. Oh, I love you, Chris.
My worldview is as the data gets bigger and goes from 35 participants to something like 200,000, as some Harvard studies do, patterns like mine emerge, and you discover that life is really about optimizing chances, and various plant-dominant diets and various behaviors can do it.
Right, so chances, which is basically another form of probability, which cannot be informed upon. Probabilities are predictions based on incidence rates, Chris. At least in the area of frequentist statistics, you can actually, in Bayesian statistics, get a little tighter by including past observations as well into your data, into your probability calculations. But it's still noisy because the world is a lot more chaotic than people would like it to be. And you might say, yeah, but what's the alternative? That's the best we got. Okay, no, it's not the best that you got, because there are other harder inferences that you can use to infer what we ought to be eating as a human being, or as the human, as Homo sapiens sapiens. I just covered that a little bit briefly. If you want to learn more about that, read my book, Contraindicated, a closer look and revision of mainstream health axioms that have perpetuated illness, disorder, and disease for over a century. If you have not bought that book already, the second edition is out now. Link in the description below for paperback, hardcover, ebook, and self-narrated audiobook edition, because I am all about authenticity, of course. And or, because they're not mutually exclusive, don't want to make a false dichotomy fallacy or a false dilemma fallacy. And or binge my public material, because I have lots of it. This is ridiculous. Doesn't matter how many people are in the study. 280,000. Yeah, that's a lot of people. Right. That are all different genotypes, different phenotypes, doing completely different things, that are followed up, not every year, but every 2 to 4 years with food frequency questionnaires that are extremely vague, with respondent data being collected, meaning people lie and people forget, because, I don't know, 2 to 4 years? That's a long damn time, Chris. So also, what was the duration of the study? Because that will allow us to see how many times they actually followed up with these damn people. Give me a break. You are drawing a causal inference here. How many of these people were on medications, drugs? How many of these people had to have medical interventions throughout that time period?
A question I've sometimes had for Dr. Greger is, does he have special love for studies where plant-based diets rise to the top because he can't help but root for the home team? I have that question about myself because I'm fully plant-based for 6 reasons, and only one of them is for health.
Right, so... Oh, wow. Uh-oh. Only one of them is for health. Right, so now we do know that he's psychotic, because vegans hate humans more than they love animals. So he's a misanthrope. He's an anti-human propagandist. Now that really... that really aggravates me. You're an anti-human misanthrope who hates humans. You don't love animals. You hate humans.
I've never been certain that people who eat plant-exclusive diets live longer than people who eat very plant-dominant diets, like the ones leading longevity scientists lean into.
We're splitting hairs at this point, Chris. Who gives a shit?
However, the more we study it, the more clear it is that we don't live in the world our ancestors lived in, even just 50.
Correct. Even just 50 years ago. Correct. I did a video on this called Modern Life is an Experiment. Oh, Eddie, you talk about ancestral consistency, and yet you're sitting in front of a computer and a microphone and lights, artificial lights, and a camera, and you're sitting in a climate-controlled environment. Yes, I know. Now, is that hypocritical? Watch that video and find out, because not exactly.
I did an episode about that. The animals and humans least affected are the ones eating lowest on the food chain. Knowing that, every time I rock...
So basically, he's saying that we should be eating like a cow. We should be herbivores. We should be eating like herbivores. Right. Right. Okay. Holy shit, Chris. How does that make any damn sense, you moron? We spray plants with pesticides and herbicides, and before you say, I'm talking about ones that aren't sprayed with pesticides and herbicides, so outside of human intervention. Well, that means that the other animals surrounding them are also untouched by human intervention, aren't they? At least theoretically. In which case, what's your point?
Material Girl, I imagine different lyrics. Chemical. Chemical. I'm so sorry if I cracked your screen before I read how not.
Oh my fucking god. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man. This is putting me to sleep, Chris. It really is. That was a big yawn.
Die, one of Dr. Greger's previous bestsellers. I checked with Seth Yoder, whom Dr. Greger had hired to fact-check it. Seth is ruthless. His fact-checking of Nina Teicholz and Gary Taubes' books are legendary and go on for pages and pages and have stood the test of time. He works for Red...
I'm not familiar with that fact check. I'm also not familiar with the books, which is why I haven't said anything. Okay, here's something interesting. So we have a book called Why We Get Sick by Ben Bickman, right? Okay. Why We Get Sick by Ben Bickman. Overall score 52% for Red Pen Reviews. Expert nutrition book reviews that sort of fact from fiction. Overall score 97% for Eat, Drink, and Be Healthy. Right, okay. Healthfulness 100%, reference accuracy 95%, scientific accuracy 95%. Right, okay. By Walter Willett. Why We Get Sick, overall score 52%, scientific accuracy 45%, reference accuracy 43%, healthfulness 68% by Benjamin Bickman, published in 2020, first edition paperback. Who is more reputable? Walter Willett or Ben Bickman? Listen, I have problems with Ben. I think that he's hyper fixated on insulin. Insulin's worse than carbs somehow. I don't know how that works. That doesn't make any sense. But this is... Wow. Wow. It'd be one thing if they put overall score, like they kept the scores on his book the same. Again, I haven't read his book either. On his book, the same as they are listed here. And then this one was like overall score 35, 29, all that stuff. Like, who are the experts here? What is their training? What did they actually employ here to determine whether or not this was actually true? Nutrition book reviews that sort fact from fiction. Like, who are these people? He mentioned someone's name, but I'm not familiar with them. What's their background, huh? What's their background?
Reviews who write nutrition book reviews. They're highly respected and no book survive.
Highly respected, huh? By whom?
Red Pen review without Red Pen finding something.
Dr. Greger reached out to me. This was like
MS Nutrition Science. Right. So there you go. All right. Well then, let's take a look at what Seth Yoder has to say. I suppose we have some time left.
2015, I think he had enjoyed some of my Gary Taubes, Nina Teicholz fact checking, and he asked me to help fact check one of his books, How Not to Die, which I did. So I feel pretty confident about the things in that book, at least.
So I decided to interview Dr. Greger in person in Palm Springs, and I asked him about fact-checking. So you have 13,000, in excess of 13,000 references in that book.
Who the f*** cares, Chris? Wow, so quantity is far better than quality, of course. Imbecile.
My mind. Who's doing the fact-checking? How much of a team do you have?
Well, we actually have a...
Oh my god. Oh my god. This goofy seriously? A broccoli shirt. Unbelievable. Seriously?
We have a full-time fact checker on staff now.
Oh, really?
So we used to do, so it started out all volunteer.
So, I'm not really a fan of the mainstream political rhetoric on either side, frankly, and either side makes it sound like there's only two, when nowadays there's so many fissures and all this stuff, but have we not seen at this point that fact checker literally doesn't mean anything? A lot of times, most of the time, they're not fact checkers. They're just highlighting things they don't like. That's it. This is the problem with authority. Like everything comes back to natural selection. I'm sorry. It's always natural selection. Okay? Authority doesn't anything. It matters whether it's true or whether it's false. Okay? People in authority can be wrong. You can't just say, oh, this is a fact because that guy said so. It's like, no, you don't need to be a physicist in order to be able to acknowledge the existence of gravity, okay? If someone in authority said gravity actually doesn't exist at all, it's just a theory. Which, by the way, that's true. It is a theory. It's the theory of gravity, right? But if they said something like, it's just a theory, it doesn't actually exist, the phenomenon doesn't exist, actually. You could look at them and go, yeah, I don't believe that. And then they could look at you and go, well, you're just an uneducated idiot. Why aren't you listening to me? I'm the authority here. But that's not how that works. It's like, no. So if the authorities can be wrong, the consensus panels therefore can be wrong because that's just subsidiary to authority. It's ancillary. And if the overall population, like the majority of people, can be wrong about something, etc., it just comes down to natural selection then, doesn't it? We're going to believe this. We'll see who wins. It's trial and error. We'll see who succeeds. Literally, all of it comes down to trial and error, natural selection. Anyway, I think I'm about to stop this because I don't think that I can handle Dr. Greger on top of Chris MacAskill. So we've got an egghead and a fat brain over here. And we've got the Smug Mug, and then another one of his little acolytes, it seems. Smug Mug Acolyte. The Smug Mug is Chris MacAskill here. He's the Smug Mug. And there's reasons for that. Michael here is I suppose you wouldn't say acolyte because he's his own king in the space, but he is still a Smug Mug. He's a Smug Mug. Chris is the Smug Mug. Anyway.
Well, it was all volunteer, I think, until How Not to Die. Then we started paying people.
You paid Seth Yoder and How Not to Die. So I think I know Seth.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I know
wonderful.
him really well.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, no, he was so sweet to go through.
He's great.
I mean, I
he's
paid him a
ruthless too.
pittance
As a fact checker, he's
no,
ruthless.
Oh, wow. You know what? This is someone that probably would think that Nick Hebert is someone that is ruthless when it comes to fact checking too, and really intelligent when it comes to it. Moron.
That's the fact checker you want.
I know.
You want a fact checker that hates you.
Yeah.
That just gets up every day and be like, oh, I'm going to tear you down.
I'm gonna find a way to show.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be great to actually be that person yourself? Not hate yourself, but constantly be second guessing yourself, always. So that you don't have to depend on other people fact checking you.
Yeah, Dr. Greger is a biased vegan.
Oh my God! I mean that right. You don't want people right? Yeah, if they're a fan, I don't want anything to do with them.
That's funny.
So that's So I think that's
bullshit. I think we all know that's bullshit. You're gonna find a fact checker that supports your points as being factual, primarily.
we actually moved to start paying people because the volunteers, we're not ruthless enough. Right. Always guilty until proven innocent. Everything. Yeah.
When I told Tom,
wait, what?
To start paying people because the volunteers, we're not ruthless enough. Right. Always guilty until proven innocent. Everything. Yeah.
When I told.
Well, when it comes to proving something as a fact, I suppose that's the proper employed method. Fine. Like, doubt it, see how much it can stand criticism. Right. Okay, fine. That's okay.
When I was going to Palm Springs to interview Dr. Greger, she said,
Not without me.
from the very
All right, we're done. I'm sorry. This is the most patronizing bullshit that I've ever seen. Seriously, I don't know why he insists on being literally like the most insufferable, pretentious, patronizing, condescending, didactic what? Haughty, arrogant, just sanctimonious buffoon. And what? Why? Chris, seriously. Stop pretending like you're anything other than a grumpy old man, a psychotic, grumpy old man. Maybe that's why you had your stroke. I guarantee that didn't help. Okay? Not saying that I appreciate that you had a stroke. But seriously, it's you need some help. Okay? With your fat brain and your smug mug attitude. Anyway. With that said, what is the takeaway here? What is the takeaway? Seriously, what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that Chris MacAskill is a he's a propagandistic moron. He's a sycophantic propagandist. Okay? He kisses everybody's all right, and he asks literally the easiest, most softball questions to people that he interviews. He doesn't interview anyone of the opposition. Okay? It's not like he has to, but we have an obligation to call that out whenever you're clearly having this bias. Okay? He's anti-human. I'm plant-based for 6 reasons, and only one of them has to do with diet. So probably the other has to do with environment, blah, 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 blah. Bunch of bullshit. And then the other four are probably ethical reasons or something like that. Okay? So, again, that already tells us enough, right? It's ethical to feed ourselves an inappropriate diet for our speciation. Because, the cows, though. The chickens, though. Yeah, right. Well, cows and pigs are sentient, so we should have killed them. We should have killed them for food. Oh, so sentience is the criterion for value of life. Well, who's the most sentient? Us. So shouldn't we give ourselves the best life possible? Which therefore puts into question what is the most indicated diet for our speciation? We're done. Anyway. The conversation can go deeper than that. I'm not saying otherwise. I'm just keeping it brief here. But yep. And also Chris, like always, is a patronizing who thinks himself better than every other person that he talks to. Okay. He thinks epidemiology is science. He writes off Peter Attia and Gabrielle Lyon, whatever, and Ben Bickman. Writes them all off because, experts say so. And, they talk about the flaws of epidemiology. Yeah, as they ought to, because it's a horrible, noisy field of theology, not science. There's more takeaways, but that's what I'm coming away with right now. I guess the final thing that I'll say is that there was no evidence provided here at all. None. This is just a fancy little video with high production quality and silly, pseudo-wholesome nonsense. Chemical. Chemical. I have a book problem. I have a book problem. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Anyway. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you haven't subscribed yet, not really sure what you're doing at all. At all. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, once again, buy my book, Contraindicated, a closer look and revision of mainstream health axioms that have perpetuated illness, disorder, and disease for over a century. And also, as you can see here, there are a lot of morons online, aren't there? Yes, there are a lot of morons online. However, as opposed to Chris MacAskill here, many of these individuals call themselves coaches, okay, online. Now, if you didn't know, however, the only requirement legally for calling yourself a coach is calling yourself a coach. Now, as you know, maybe, if you're not a new viewer, but if you are, I am a stickler for deregulation of systems. I am. Not pure anarchy. Now, with that said, I also understand that every single system has cons. Every single one. Okay. What are the cons of this system? Deregulation of the whole authority field. That literally a homeless person could call themselves a life coach. Okay. However, what does that mean? What does that mean for us? Does that mean to completely change the system back to what it used to be? Really, what it still is, actually. Or does it mean that it just makes it incumbent upon us and behooves us to actually increase the supply of coaches that actually do know what they're talking about in order to make authority mean something? Because as much as it is a fallacy to appeal to authority, it doesn't change the fact that most people still will. So you may as well make it mean something. Well, it means the latter, actually. It means it behooves us to do so. Well, fortunately for you, I have an ability for you to be able to do that, to fight back against this nonsense online, these charlatans online. And that is with our carnivore certification program that gets you internationally accredited as a certified nutrition and or fitness coach if you decide to take our fitness program. And that is internationally recognized by the National Academy of Sports Medicine and the Athletics and Fitness Association of America. Now, what is this program, you might ask? And you know what? I'm glad that you asked. This program is a program that gets you, first off, an education that is hundreds of thousands of times greater than what I would ever expect you to get from university, that you can ever acquire in university, in my opinion. And also, is for an incomprehensibly small fraction of the price. Wow, sound good so far? Well, just wait, there's more. I haven't actually told you what the program is about. What is the program about? What actually is it, Eddie? Well, again, I'm glad you asked. This is a program that continues to evolve in terms of the material that's in it. I have contributed multiple modules to this program surrounding concepts like the Randall cycle, which you may or may not have heard of, cholesterol, saturated fat, and heart disease, ketones, gluconeogenesis, uncoupled versus coupled mitochondria, and also vitamin C metabolism on carnivore, and also the implications of dietary carbohydrates and high-intensity training. Do you need them? Can they help? Et cetera, et cetera. And also, is it ever appropriate to reintroduce carbohydrates back into people's diets, into your clients' diets? And if so, under what conditions? And who's to say that those are the only modules that I'll be contributing to the program throughout the lifetime of the program? You get lifetime access to this program. There's also modules from other instructors, for example, Dr. Ankur Verma, an emergency medical physician from India, on how to properly interpret medical literature. We also have modules coming from Coach Richard Smith of Keto Pro. We have a module, we actually have multiple modules in the program, but one of the most primary ones, the best ones that I've seen, is from Coach Stephen Thomas, actually, who has done an entire module on what blood tests measure, so the relevant ones with respect to diet, and how to properly interpret them. You're not going to get that education in university. We also have modules from Dr. Abs about NAD positive and glucose, its intricate sort of intimate, direct, granular effects on your physiology, and what to be aware of when it comes to glucose and all of that stuff. And again, also NAD positive, which you may or may not have heard of as well. We continue once again to evolve this program. Again, you get lifetime access. There is also a free consultation service that you can have with me about anything that I talk about in the program, as well as certain things that I talk about outside of the program in my public material, because you can only talk about so much in one program. You also get something that is entirely underestimated in every single area of the market, actually, in every service that you can think of, which is a community aspect. The community aspect is extremely important. Extremely important. If you are having trouble with coaching clientele, other people in the community may have had the exact same problems and have solutions to offer, or even if they don't have the same, they haven't had the same encounter, they still can provide even better feedback, better suggestions, etc. It's extremely important. And so this is a great coaching program. I haven't even mentioned that becoming internationally accredited means you actually get to personally talk to and more intimately talk to medical professionals of your clientele, as well as more easily acquiring insurance as well. And so this is a great opportunity for you if you want to spread the message of carnivore farther and wider, if you want to fight back against this nonsense from charlatans online that call themselves coaches. There is competition involved here. There are a lot more of them than there are of us. And so what we need is more people that actually are able to fight back against it. If you are someone that has had tremendous success on a carnivore diet and or have seen other people have tremendous success on a carnivore diet and or have at least a baseline level of understanding about carnivore, or maybe not at all. I mean, this is good for everyone, even without any education. Then this is a good opportunity for you to be able to fight the good fight, and subserve the moral obligation, in my opinion, that you have to spread the message of carnivore farther and wider. And so, does this mean that this is the best way for you to be able to do that? No, it doesn't. But the best way to actually find out is by scheduling a free call with Coach Peter, who actually heads the program, Carnivore Coach Peter, who has coached clients for over 20 years and has actually decided to take a break from that to coach coaches. That's what he's doing now. Schedule a free 15-minute call with him via the links in the description below to get a hold of him, so you can have a more personal conversation about the program and to see if it's a good fit for you. So what I would also do is if you want to actually perform a step even before that, I will link a video in the top right corner of the screen, which is an interview that I had with Peter about this very topic, about the program, the contents of the program, and also about himself, about his personal story, about how he arrived at carnivore, what his experience has been on carnivore, what his experience has been coaching clients on carnivore, etc. And so that's important for you to watch anyway. But if you want to do that before scheduling a call with him, then go right ahead. I will link that in the top right corner of the screen. And now it'll also be in the description below as well. So with that said, I hope to see you in the program. It's a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer. And with that said, join me next time when we are hopefully not reacting to Chris MacAskill. We're definitely not going to be reacting to someone that is more arrogant than Chris MacAskill. Fat brain smug mug, Chris MacAskill. That maybe loves Barnes & Noble. Might be where he got all his books from. So, till then. Before you go, there's a lot of noise in the health space. Lots of opinions, lots of claims, but not enough rigor. If you care about evidence, mechanisms, and intellectual honesty, if you're willing to change your mind when the data demands it, then you're who this community is for. I've built a health science community focused on veracity over popularity. No dogma, no ego, just disciplined thinking across nutrition, biology, and health. It's live now. If that sounds like your kind of room, you can join via the links in the description below.